What then is the response to business when we see that kind of labor market disparity that begins to divide us as Black people across the world? I don't know how many of you are big on social media, but there was an interesting conversation that had happened earlier this year. It was over 20,000 Africans for almost 12 hours, so it was basically a night vigil around the question of African immigration to America, and particularly, does it benefit African Americans? Because of course we've seen in the post-independence era so much of a growth in African diaspora leaving and coming to America, going across or leaving the countries because of the lack of opportunities and a whole range of discontents of the post-independence era. But one of the things that was quite interesting in this conversation about, which really comes down to labor market disparities, the ways in which different migrant groups are pitted against local groups, is that it had so many parallels to many different conversations around competition between various Black groups, whether it is Dominicans and Haitians, whether it is Ghanaians and Nigerians, whether it is Black South Africans and African nationals, for example, and this way in which we are forced to compete under the ravages of global racial capitalism. Workers are straining, and Black workers in particular are straining under global racial capitalism. And ultimately, because we don't have the language for or the understanding for what is happening, we begin to bear the brunt of each other's frustration and anger. And in particular in this conversation, there were kind of, people making comments like, I come to America, we work hard, you African Americans don't want to do 1, 2, 3. The African Americans, are also quite frustrated about the ways in which they are undermined in the marketplace. And again, what was interesting about the conversation is that it's not new and it's not unique to America. Again, right now in South Africa, you have Operation Dudula, which is against, so-called foreign nationals, because you can't be foreign if you're an African person on the African continent. But this is what people are doing in the face of high rates of competition. What then is the response to business when we see that kind of labor market disparity that begins to divide us as Black people across the world?
The first is that I don't think that the divisions, misunderstandings between African Americans and Africans, and you can sometimes between West Africans and East Africans, or West Africans and Southern Africans, is necessarily due to a conscious policy of divide and rule.